Hey guys, Brett with Broussard Homestead. We were going through our pantry today and we decided it might be a good idea to make a video about what we keep in our pantry for hurricane prep. This stuff can actually be applied to any kind of emergency, including whether it be loss of life, SHTF. Um, we're going small scale. We're not talking about any large scale events. We may cover that in a future video. But a few things you want to keep in mind when stocking your pantry for emergencies. Obviously, you want to fill it with non-perishables. You want to stock your pantry with things that you will eat. You don't want to have a big stock of things that is just going to sit there, because that doesn't do anybody any good. As you stock your pantry, you'll see things that you're low on, and you can shop for sales on those things, buy in bulk. One thing that I do recommend though is if you do buy in bulk, buy in packages that are a reasonable size, something you can eat in one, you or your family can eat in one sitting, because the things that we're prepping for, many of those events are going to be without utilities, without electricity, and without electricity you don't have refrigeration, so any leftovers won't last very long. On that note, some things you could buy in bulk, you could repackage in smaller containers, and we've done some of that here. We'll go over that. So the website ready.gov, which is FEMA's website, they recommend that every family stocks at least 3 days of food in preparation for emergencies. I would definitely recommend more than that, just because we live here in Southwest Louisiana, and it's been 13 years, but Hurricane Rita is still fresh in my mind, and where we were living at the time, we were out of power for 13 days. That's 13 days with no refrigeration. We lost a lot of food. We had to throw away a lot of meats and things like that was in our fridge and freezer. We just couldn't keep it. We couldn't store it. We cooked what we could, but unfortunately we lost a lot. Now that's also 13 days that you can't just run out to the store. So, and that's kind of what we're talking about here, is when you can't just run out for anything that you need. You live off of what you have. So I've taken out a few items from our pantry just to talk about, or maybe even you could say recommend some things for your pantry. Again, you want to remember things that you will eat, things that you will use. We have a family of 4, so we have a pretty sizable pantry, but we're always working on that. We're always expanding that. So anyway, one thing that you need to be concerned with is protein. And you can get canned meats. We have a few examples here. This is tuna. The tuna that we have, this is a 4-pack, so that's individual packs, and we can eat that in one serving. We could eat that in one serving. Another source of protein, if you don't want to store the meats, maybe peanut butter or dry beans. These are beans that we bought in bags at the grocery store, but to make them last longer, we store them in vacuums. We store them in mason jars, and we put some oxygen absorbers in there, so they'll last a little longer that way. And also peanut butter. Peanut butter lasts really long time, far past the expiration date, just in the package that it comes in from the store. Next, we'll talk about vegetables, canned vegetables. The store-bought varieties are always good. These have pop tops on them, so that's easy to open and use. If you don't have pop tops on any cans, I actually don't have any here that don't have the pop tops, but don't forget your can openers. Got a couple of different types here, but don't forget your can opener. Store-bought vegetables aren't the only vegetables that you can store. These are some green beans that we grew, and we canned them. We grew these a couple of years ago, and we canned those. We pressure canned them that year, and these are good for several years. Canned fruits, another good thing. Again, pop top. Things can get really bland, almost unpalatable. It's good to have some sweets once in a while, and you can't always get a cookie or a cake or chocolate or whatever in those kinds of situations. So canned fruits kind of give us a little bit of a boost, a little morale booster, could say. A little something to curb that sweet tooth. Canned soups, I don't really recommend these. There's not a whole lot of nutritional content in that. Chicken noodle soup or any other canned soups, Progresso is a good one. That's another open the can and eat it meal. Rice sides, this one is Spanish rice. I highly recommend these, not as a standalone meal, but obviously, these are just add water. The pasta side's not the same. A lot of them take butter and milk, but these you can just add water, and you can eat it just like that. Stuff like these, maybe not so much, because this one takes milk, this one takes milk and butter. So unless you can store those things in some kind of way that that doesn't take refrigeration, I would probably not recommend these. Bread, I wouldn't recommend bread, but a good alternative to bread is tortillas. Tortillas last quite a bit longer than bread, actually. That's a good way to store. Also crackers as a bread substitute. We could, eat tuna and crackers, Spam and crackers, things like that instead of bread. Dried fruit. We have store-bought raisins that are good. Obviously, that's a dried fruit. And then we have dried strawberries. We dry them ourselves, and then we put thank you. Dried strawberries. We made these ourselves. We put them in a mason jar, and we add oxygen absorbers to them to make them last longer. These are great in cereal, by the way, even if it's not an emergency. Dried potatoes. These potatoes came in a box from the grocery store. We decided to put those also in a mason jar, and we put the instructions right there on the jar. I would strongly recommend putting those in a jar, because a box, it's not airtight, and bugs can infest that. Same note, oats, we still have these in the container because we use them quickly, but I would also probably store those oats in a mason jar as well. Cereal, another good option. Unfortunately though, without milk, it might be one of those bland things that you may want to add some fruit to it or eat it some other kind of way, because without milk, cereal doesn't taste great, but it stores well. We took this out of the box and put it in this airtight container, and in the same way we have these. This is some instant oatmeal that Amy makes, and I'm not even sure what's in it. She'd have to tell you, make a video. You can watch for that. Dry milk is one way that you can actually store milk for that cereal that we just talked about. Or you could also use it for those box recipes that need milk. We just didn't take it out of this container yet because it's not open, but I would also recommend putting this in a mason jar. Seasonings. Obviously, we want to keep some salt on hand. Not only does salt make food taste better, but it can be a preservative. So just having salt in food can help it last longer. In addition to salt, our favorite Cajun seasoning. We live in Southwest Louisiana, and you won't find a household without Tony's or some other kind of Cajun seasoning blend. So that's a staple. Same with Tabasco. onion powder, garlic powder, these store far better than their fresh counterparts. So, I mean, that's just an example. You get what you want, herbs, spices, whatever. It's a great idea to have those things on hand to help take a lot of the blandness out of your food. Drink mixes, because you can get real tired of water real fast. We have just a few examples. Gatorade is really good. It helps you keep your electrolytes up. It's good when it's really hot, because, and you know, if you are prepping for a hurricane, then Gatorade I would strongly recommend, because hurricanes happen when it's really hot out. And after Hurricane Rita, 13 days with no electricity, no air conditioning, no refrigeration, Gatorade was a true lifesaver. This instant lemonade is another good thing to keep. Now, of course, with the drink mixes and with much of the other stuff that we talked about today, you're going to need to add water. Water is water is the most important thing that you can prep, the thing that you can put away. The human body can only live about 3 days without water. So this is one way that we store water. We have lots of these old vinegar jugs, and when we're done with them, we empty them out of vinegar, we rinse them out good, and then we fill those with tap water, and then we label it, the date that we put it in there. And that's just so we know how fresh the water is. This is just one way that we store water. And there's lots of other potential ways that people can store water. We do this. We have cases of the little bottles of water. We have cases of store-bought gallons. We have a rainwater catchment system. Now, our rainwater catchment system we don't use for drinking water. However, we can use that for flushing toilets, showers, washing hands, things like that. If you have clear, clean drinking water and you have a limited supply of it, you really don't want to use it for things like showering and washing hands and such. You want to reserve that clean drinking water for drinking and for cooking. The recommended amount of water that you store is 2 gallons per person per day. Now that covers washing up and drinking and cooking. Now you can see where that can get that can take up a lot of space. So that's why we have different ways that we store water. So we made this video today just to kind of touch on things that we can do to start stocking a pantry for emergencies. And again, this particular one, we did this with hurricane prep in mind, but it can be applied to other emergencies. Hurricane is our most likely event that we could have in this area in Southwest Louisiana. I don't know, your area, you may be prepping for floods, tornadoes, earthquakes. I don't know, tell us in the comments. Our intention in this video is to be the first in a series for prepping for emergencies. We hope it's been helpful. We hope you learned something. Consider subscribing. We hope that you and your family will stay safe in whatever event you face. Until next time, this is Brett with Broussard Homestead.